All right, well, let's do a summary. Matt Price with Price and Partner really comes with a different perspective of side hustles, starting kind of in his younger age. Did a side hustle, not necessarily for side income, but he knew he eventually wanted to be with startups and also have like a mentor role. And so he's doing side hustles for the experience factor. He knew he needed firsthand experience instead of just learning from books or learning from classrooms. And so all those kind of side hustles culminated into his now current role, which is an advisor and an incubator. But he advises if you are in the midst of launching your own startup, don't go for any additional side hustles. Stay laser focused on what you're doing now. But if you're potentially like a college student and know you want to launch a business, but you don't have a specific plan, use side hustles actively and strategically as your plan to gain the firsthand knowledge and experience so that when you're ready, you have the tool sets and the firsthand knowledge to kind of launch your venture. Hi, I'm Ryan Vassa with The Venture College, a program within the College of Innovation Design at Boise State. The Venture College helps students and community members launch their ideas beyond the classroom and turn those ideas into startups, lifestyle businesses, side hustles, and other ventures. With the COVID-19 situation, we know that more and more people in our community and throughout Idaho, beyond just students, will be looking for ways to generate extra income. That's why we've started the Side Hustle series. We will be talking to successful entrepreneurs about starting and growing side hustles that can be done from just about anywhere in the world. If you're interested in learning more or need some help, contact us at venturecollege@boisestate.edu or go to our website to learn more. Also, watch out for our social media accounts for the next installments of the Side Hustle series. Hello, everyone. I'm here with Matt Price, who's the founder of Price and Partners, essentially an incubator for startups that are around the 500,000 to $1 million revenue, and he helps grow them to about 10 million. But Matt, let's just jump into your history. You kind of have a history of side hustles yourself. So what's your backstory?
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. Good to be on. My story started around 2013. Moved from Omaha, Nebraska, on a dare that someone had dared me that I couldn't actually make wine. So I actually moved from Omaha, Nebraska to California, and started a company with a couple buddies, and it went pretty well. In that process, I really started to learn the necessity of side hustling, and essentially have built a career on side hustling with a purpose. So,
can you define what you mean by that, like with a purpose?
Sure, absolutely. So basically everything that I've done has fit into a master plan of wanting to be the best at building and investing in companies. And around 2014, I had a really weird freelance opportunity to write an M&A strategy on behalf of Morgan Stanley Global Private Equity. And funny enough, I didn't at the time have even much experience with building PowerPoint, but Morgan Stanley greenlit that particular strategy, and I went on to help find the target deal that was in there. So from California, I moved to New York City and began really getting involved with startups. Upon some good advice from the director at Morgan Stanley Global Private Equity, when I went to him for a job, he told me to really be the best investor, you had to have a proprietary point of view. And that point of view would come by learning how to build companies across a wide range of verticals. So since 2014, that's what I've done. Gotcha.
So let's kind of go down that road. Like, there's kind of like an argument, at least like in the investor world, of like you need to stay laser focused, right, on your purpose. So how do you balance like staying laser focused on your business, but then also like managing side hustles and growing your experience?
Yeah, so I've always looked at it in the laser focus piece that there's a bunch of, you have to be good at a lot of things if you really want to be a good investor. And the earlier stage that you're at, oftentimes the harder it is to pick just being a numbers guy, right? So getting to work with really good teams, getting to work with some bad teams, learning how to write marketing strategies, funding strategies, I was the CFO for two of them. I was the CEO of one company. So all that led in a plan to this proprietary point of view. And so I've always stayed laser focused on the point of view and sort of what I thought at the culmination of like that education looked like. I didn't believe that you could get that education correctly from just Harvard or going and working at Goldman Sachs. I felt like to be at founder level for as long as I have is really where the white space was. So all of the things I did, freelance strategies, marketing, team building, I'd worked for as a consultant to investment banks, funds, high net individuals, founders, and all that side hustling really was laser focused at the mission, and that was to understand how to work with founders, what made good founders and bad founders, and what was an investable opportunity. And there was a lot of side hustles and sort of things that had to be done before you could gain that POV.
Sure. So if I just summarize it, what I'm hearing is some people do side hustles for kind of extra income, or potentially maybe eventually it'll grow into some type of startup. You were launching or managing multiple side hustles, mainly to gain firsthand experience, knowledge that you couldn't understand in a book or in a classroom, which is essentially like culminating into your grander goal of like where you want to take your current company. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, awesome. So let's talk about the teams that you're working with now. Like, would you encourage them to do their own side hustles? Like now that you're kind of more the investor role, like do you still encourage that for their own, or like what are your thoughts on that?
Interesting question. I would say no, probably
Okay.
not. I want those companies to be laser focused on their particular goal. And where we differentiate from me to them is that I wanted to be the best asset to them. And so by helping them with a wide range of things that are going to come up in building their businesses, my goal is to be sort of the best advisor and best part of that team so that they don't have to go focus on other things or learn it from other ways, essentially trying to give them some unfair advantages from what I've learned.
Got it. That makes sense. So as an advisor, it's good for you to have that firsthand experience, but for them, they're like in the trenches. Stay focused on your startup. Don't necessarily like launch an additional side hustle.
Totally, but I think there's an argument to be made in the earlier days to stay alive, right? So if there's, I think it's for a lot of founders who don't necessarily go after or get that first amount of funding, a lot of them start with part-time jobs or have different things that they're doing to keep the money in the business and not have to take those paychecks. So
yeah, it totally makes sense. So if I have a side hustle, like at what point any advice on what point do I talk to an investor about maybe like potentially going into a business? Like walk me through that path.
Talking to an investor in terms of your startup or your side hustle?
Yeah, like so we've interviewed like several people where their side hustle eventually turns into their full-time startup.
Sure.
and they kind of make that leap. So like I guess walk me through like from your experience, is there a time where side hustles should be talking to investors, or no, like turn it into a full business and then come? Like, what's your perspective from that?
Yeah, I think in terms of taking other people's money, it has to be a lot more than just a side hustle.
Sure.
From my point of view, I think that it has to be a business that can take money and grow, not necessarily take money and survive, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, but I do. The art of side hustling is so good because if you're doing it with a plan, you can kind of map out almost like a course curriculum of what you think you need to learn and be fairly proficient at to be the best CEO or the most investable founder. And so whatever path they take, side hustling is such a great way to make some income. And I think if you're doing it with a plan, I think that's where the magic's at.
So if I'm in college and I know one day I want to run my own business, but I don't even know what that is, it almost sounds like you're saying like maybe start probing the waters by doing your own side hustles to kind of gain that firsthand experience, even though you don't necessarily know like what the outcome could be.
Sure. I think if you're talking about building your own business, inevitably you're going to be more than a founder. You're going to be an executive. And I think if you can look at it and take it all the way to the final part of your business, you can kind of go back to the start and map out the things you kind of think you need to be good at. And everyone has their own strengths based on kind of their personality. Some people are more creative and they're going to tend to go towards marketing and creative things like that. Some people are very process driven, and so they might move to learning how to manufacture and learning how to sort of build the ins and outs of processes. Two very fairly different skill sets, but I think if you're a college student looking to do that, you want to build enough knowledge around what you're passionate about and survive and stay in the game long enough where you don't find yourself having to take a real job that kind of takes you off that side, to kind of sidetracks you from that.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. Going back to your side hustles, were you doing it to refine a skill that you already had, or were you kind of like starting from scratch and like, I need to learn this, like have no idea, so I'm going to start with this?
Yeah, looking back, I would say that the beginning of it was no idea. I think I faked it well,
Sure.
and thought I had some. I think my kind of skill sets were that I was able to take risks well, and that I've always had a passion for sort of personal development and wanting to get to a certain destination. that answers the question.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And do you, obviously your core business is Price and Partner right now. Do you have any additional side hustles you're doing now, or just focus more on the mentorship role?
So side hustle, I'm actively engaged right now with 4 different growth stage companies that are roughly in that, million to 8 million. So
Yeah.
I'm fairly full functioning member of all of those teams.
Yeah.
I think sometimes it's no longer side hustling, although it does feel like it. Making
Yeah.
a variety of teams, and that all came from the knowledge base from the side hustles.
Totally makes sense. So let's, I totally understand on the founder aspect that, like, if I'm in the midst of launching a startup, I need to stay focused. But once you start growing an organization, let's say you have like 10, 20 employees, should a founder want or expect their employees to also be doing side hustles, or like almost like an
Right.
entrepreneurial ecosystem? Or is it like, no, you need to stay focused on the company mission? What are your thoughts there?
Probably goes to see how much they can pay them.
Okay.
I
Sure.
think if they're able to afford to pay people full time and that can be their focus, great. I think for the companies that can't, and that might be a lot of companies right now. Executives might look to know that we can't employ you full time, but we'd still like you to beef up some of the things that you do well. And that could come from, writing creative decks or, building financial models for other companies. You still get to sharpen those skills. You still get to stay engaged on what the company's hired you for, but you also get to make some money and you get to kind of sharpen those skills.
Makes sense. All right, well, let's do a summary. Matt Price with Price and Partner really comes with a different perspective of side hustles, starting kind of in his younger age. Did a side hustle, not necessarily for side income, but he knew he eventually wanted to be with startups and also have like a mentor role. And so he's doing side hustles for the experience factor. He knew he needed firsthand experience instead of just learning from books or learning from classrooms. And so all those kind of side hustles culminated into his now current role, which is an advisor and an incubator. But he advises, if you are in the midst of launching your own startup, don't go for any additional side hustles. Stay laser focused on what you're doing now. But if you're potentially like a college student and know you want to launch a business, but you don't have a specific plan, use side hustles actively and strategically as your plan to gain the firsthand knowledge and experience so that when you're ready, you have the tool sets and the firsthand knowledge to kind of launch your venture.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add to that, Matt?
Overall, to do as I say, not as I did. I also think that, you want to stay, at least from my perspective, to be able to stay engaged and be in business, you have to survive. And I think it's the really kind of the hungry, scrappy people that can bootstrap and bring in simultaneous revenue streams. I think that's an investable trait in people that you can survive and you can continue to move forward without the help of investor money.
Makes a lot of sense. Awesome, Matt. Thank you so much for sharing. Appreciate it.
Hey, no worries. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for listening. While you're waiting for the next episode, feel free to contact us or follow us on social media.